So let's take a few moments to be present. We are going to enter a time of doing some deep breathing. I always like to start these activations off with the breath work. So let's take a deep breath, please. And take about 7 more deep breaths, please. And just be present for just a few moments. I'm going to be in the receptive mode for this activation that will come forth around the essential elements embodiment. And so as I'm being present, I'm just going to provide just a little context around this. I know that some are familiar with the elements of water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. But during this time, because this is really pertaining to your new anatomy and the essential elements and the embodiment as it relates to your new anatomy, this is not about assigning any school of thought or paradigms around this premise, so to speak. So we're actually going to take some time to be kind of in a neutral space, a blank slate is what I call it, and do a small process around that. Some of you are familiar with that process if you've listened to other activations or even trainings that I've done. And basically, this process brings you into this space outside of the traditional space of the norm. So I'm going to invite you at this moment to take 3 deep breaths, please. And I just want you to take a moment to imagine yourself being stepped outside of everything that you've ever known around these elements. And even if you're not familiar with these elements, that's okay. Continue to be present with the space. So you're in this blank space, a blank slate, and you are just being present with the potential of what these elements will mean for you. And I know within, again, some schools of thoughts, they will say that you're one or the other, or maybe one or two, and there's a primary one that you operate from more consistently. But in this case, the embodiment is the whole of the experience, that you operate from the different elements at any given time is kind of a cohesive experience. And yes, it can include that sometimes you're more dominant, more consistently in a specific one, but in the new anatomy, it really is not about assigning a label to yourself in terms of I'm fire, I'm wood. Again, the essentials of this is about the embodiment in the new anatomy, in the energy body, so to speak. So the context is that each of these will come into play as they need to. But it's going to be unique to you, and that's what being in this blank slate space energy is doing for you now. Helping you to step outside of the labels and the context of assigned ways of being according to the traditional formats of the elements. Take a deep breath, please. And so now with this embodiment of these essentials, this is about being able to harmonize and harness this higher way of beingness for you to live out in a more optimized life experience. And this is really according to the evolution of you, but also your new anatomy template. And so we want to be present with what that new anatomy template will reveal to you during this time about the embodiment of these essential elements. And you may find that you revisit this process several times and it reveals something different, and you really need to allow it to be that present moment newness each and every time. So today, in being present, it may be that more of the fire energy is most prominent, I should say, with you during this time, or maybe the metal, both of those could be. But again, tomorrow, that could be something completely different. And so that's why you don't want to really take on an assignment of a label, so to speak. And that's not saying that sometimes you won't have to, but just from a consistency base, you don't want to take ownership in terms of, I am this and I'm always this. Within this newer experience, again, when it's an embodiment of a cohesive totality of higher optimum living and operating, again, it can fluctuate and you just have to be present. Be like, during this time, I am certainly earth. And I feel watery. And again, that could definitely change within the next hour. So you just want to be intentional to be present and conscious of this embodiment. Take a deep breath, please. So let's be present. And according to your new anatomy, you can ask, what are the more prominent elements during this time within your energy? And as that's being revealed to you, you can ask for the wisdom and insight around what is the relevance of this knowledge, of this knowingness. And how should you proceed with this awareness? Take a deep breath, please. So whatever element or elements came up for you, I want you to be present with the specifics. So if it's fire, I want you to sit with the fire element. And just be present with the vibration. Again, this just pertains to any of them. but I want you to be present, individually, and we'll come back to the collective embodiment and being present with that. But just whichever ones came up for you, just be present with that right now. And whatever insights come up for you, if you have note-taking material, certainly write it down. And I'll give a few moments if people would like to pause and actually go and get note-taking material. So we'll do some deep breathing as people are getting that material for themselves. Take about 7 deep breaths, please. Okay. So let's be present just a little bit more with those elements that came up for you. And just ask, what do I most need to know? What do I most need to know about these elements? You always want to seek the relevance, the now time relevance of these awarenesses. Take a deep breath, please. And so now we're going to be present with the whole of this cohesive experience, the essential elements embodiment. Because as we proceed to activate, to anchor and activate the wisdom that comes up, this is going to be the potential to harmonize. And then we'll know how to even harness and expand the awareness and the power around what comes up. This is going to be the greater potential in terms of what will be expressed through your life. So let's just be present. Take a deep breath, please. And so let's be with the harmonization factor for just a moment. That's what's really coming up now, is that taking the wisdom and the insight and really orchestrating this accordingly. So being the symphony of your soul, in a sense, of your anatomy at this point, and getting everything in position so that the harmony is there. Because when these elements within you are harmonized and you are one with this cohesive experience, with this embodiment, that's when you're able to masterfully harness the potential and the power and the purpose and possibilities of your whole unique life's design. And really understanding what that means, what that entails as it relates to this new anatomy that's coming forth through you. It's being extracted by every activation and process that you are undergoing, so to speak. And this here actually just brings together really all of your experiences thus far and harmonizing. So it's not so much just about let me harmonize, the water, the wood, the fire, the earth, the metal from just that core element perspective. It is really about the elements of life. The elements of life. Life has so many different components, so many different elements and aspects. And this process is really about bringing the new order and harmonization to this entire experience. And that's why the essentials of life, the essentials of the elements being embodied for this cohesive experience of higher well-being. And that's what you want to harness. The harmonization of the complete total self at this phase. The harmonization of the moment, the melody of the moment, and the momentum from those moments is what you masterfully harness. And this is what plays out. And through this process, it's just the unique symphony of self, soul, and self and source coming through. And so when we don't assign ourselves to a particular element, when it's not calling forth for that in our experience, then we can understand, yes, just like flutes are in a section in an orchestra or in a band, and clarinets and drums and trumpets or trombones, the brass sections. There are different sections, and that's how you have to begin to see the elements within you in this holistic way, is that they are in sections, so to speak, and each one or each section is playing a part in this higher harmonization, but they all exist. And yes, at times there's going to be a section that is going to play louder than the others, or is more of the center stage or the significant feature, if you will. And then, yes, there are times where there's the solo aspect, where the wood is playing and all of the other sections are kind of silent because it's just that moment for the wood to come forth, in whatever context that is. Yeah. But just being aware that there are newer ways in which we have to live our lives from this place of wholeness and harmonization. And that, again, is what the harnessing aspect is. So let's take a deep breath, please. So being present with the essential elements, the whole of life, and the embodiment, and leveraging these 5 elements within that framework, and living from those moment by moment expressions. That's what the new anatomy is desiring to activate within you. Find resonance in this, because that's going to ground and anchor it even more as this process continues. So now that we have been present with the harmonization aspect, let's be more present with what needs to be harnessed during this time. What about the life essentials and these elements, the essential elements of life, in addition to these 5 elements? What needs to now be harnessed from the wisdom and the insights that have come up? So let's be present with that before we anchor and activate this. Let's be present, and let's take about 5 deep breaths, please. So let's take a few moments to actually expand the awareness around what has just come up. Let's allow the space to expand so that maybe more context and more clarity comes to that, or more insights that really want to come forth in order for you to accelerate this potential and this power, so that this plays out in your external reality, not just in a very significant way, but in a right now way. Take a deep breath, please. And so on that expanded awareness, I'm going to ask you to take another nice deep breath and hold it for about 5 seconds, please. And upon doing this, just awaken another aspect of your new anatomy. And that is something we're going to be present with, that expansion and this awakening. So let's just take a few moments here. Okay. Now we're ready to anchor and activate this experience. So at this moment, I'm calling forth for the activation of the higher wisdom and knowledge, the sacredness of this experience, the expanded awareness around the essential elements embodiment. That we anchor this deeply, find the resonance within the new anatomy to come forth, overtaking the current anatomy trajectory and establishing this new way of beingness throughout the entire body, transformed by the renewing of the mind, and now in the way of beingness. Move, breathe, and have beingness within this source potential, this embodiment, the harmonization and the harnessing. So we activate this and allow that to be present within you right now, this higher activation. And feel the harmonization and the harnessing. Feel that working together like a hand and glove, unique union required for your higher well-being during this time. That your new anatomy that has been awakened and expanded fully activates this through you. And this plays out in your total well-being, in health and wealth, total optimum living, evolutionary expansion. Every area of your life that has required metamorphosis activates and accelerates. And the harmonization of it all. You are the water, the wood, the fire, the earth, and the metal. You are all of source embodied. And activating the full potential and possibilities that come forth in expression as your higher life purpose that just plays out in your everyday well-beingness and way of beingness. You are the harmony, you are the melody. You are the elements, and you are essential to this life and to the life of others. Take a deep breath, please. You are the embodiment, the cohesiveness of this harmonious expression. So go forth and be the essential elements in this embodied format and live the life that you are here to live, that optimum way of being. You are a new creation and your new anatomy has been activated in this higher level of a symphony of self and your greater source connection and truth. Take a deep breath, please. This activation is complete. Thank you.